Hi, my name is Reverend Dale Brown, and I am the pastor at Community Church at Ocean Pines. And I welcome you in the name of Christ for this series of short thoughts and suggestions as we prepare during the season of Advent for the coming of Christ at Christmas. What I would encourage you to do is to know that there are 6 segments of these videos. And each segment will cover or portray a character or person at the manger. And what I would like to do is to give you a brief introduction, to read a portion of Scripture for you, and then to invite you to respond in some fashion, in some way, to the coming of Christ, that you might and I might prepare for the gift of Jesus to the world. One of my favorite things about Christmas and Advent is the creche or nativity scenes that appear. History tells us that the first person to use a creche or a nativity scene was actually St. Francis of Assisi. And he did that to help people understand and learn the Christmas story. When I was a young man, about 12 years old, I'm now going to be 58 in December, I purchased an olive wood nativity scene in Jerusalem at the Baptist bookstore. And I have had that nativity scene with me for all of those years. And it is actually here beside me on the table as I introduce the characters of the story to you. The first character of the story that we will cover are the wise men. And we know that the wise men brought gifts to Jesus. And they were magi who traveled from the east, and these are the 3 wise men that are a part of this olive wood nativity scene. Secondly, we will remember the shepherds. Now, I only have one shepherd in this scene, and here he is. But they were watching their flocks by night when they saw the angel chorus. The third character that we'll think about is Joseph. And Joseph is not mentioned often in the New Testament. In fact, other than one gospel, he really doesn't make much of an appearance. However, he was an important part of the birth and very early life of Jesus. We know that Joseph was a carpenter. Actually, the term there is tekton, as Adam Hamilton has pointed out, and he was a person who worked in wood and often built things needed for life in ancient Israel in and around the houses that are there. The next character, next figure, or the face at the manger that we'll cover and think about is Mary. And Mary is the mother of Jesus. She's a teenage girl. She's very, very young and was very frightened and filled with awe and wonder when the angel told her that she would be the mother of the Messiah. Mary is one of those persons who, whether you're a man or a woman, is really important and valuable to emulate. And then there's Jesus. Jesus, the main character, the main face at the manger. And he is the one who has come as Jesus, for he will save his people, and Emmanuel, meaning God is with us. So each week, we're going to release 1 or 2 of these mini retreats for you as we prepare for the coming of Christmas, as we use this season of Advent to get ready. Hear then these familiar words from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. he went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged, and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. I'd like to take this time as we begin together to tell you a story. And it's a story that happened to me, and that illustrates why it is so important to keep Jesus at the very center of our Advent Christmas celebration. For several years at the start of my career, I served as the pastor of the Whaleyville New Hope Charge. And then, as is wont to happen to United Methodist pastors, I was appointed to a new position. I was to become the associate pastor at Trinity United Methodist Church in Salisbury. So my family at that time set about packing everything, because we had to move from one home to another. And some boxes, you unpack right away, and some boxes you put in storage until that season or that time needs them or requires them. And so it was with Christmas decorations and this nativity scene. I put it in storage until Advent began. Now, I always had the practice of placing the manger in one room and placing Mary and Joseph and one of the donkeys in another room, the wise men in a third room, and the shepherds in a fourth room. And each Sunday of Advent, I would move them closer and closer to the manger, so that they all arrived on or by Christmas for the birth of Christ. And I don't place the baby Jesus in the manger until Christmas Day. That's one of my practices on Christmas morning, because that's when we believe he arrived. So that year I took the nativity scene out, and I was actually going to use it in my office down at the church, and I found Mary and Joseph very quickly, and I found the shepherds and the wise men, and I found the camels that I have and the sheep that I have, and I found the manger, and I was missing one character: baby Jesus. So that whole Advent Christmas season, I spent going through box after box after box at home looking for Jesus. And it became a metaphor for me, because I think Christmas is so important and such a wonderful holiday, and we feel so good towards each other that it's important that we keep Jesus at the center of our faith, our Advent practices, and our Christmas celebrations. I have to tell you, I never did find Jesus in time for that Christmas so many years ago. In fact, it wasn't until much later, when I was unpacking another box for some unknown reason that I can't remember or recall, that I actually looked in the bottom of the box and tucked under one of the flaps, because you know how you can fold a box together, was this character, this olive wood Jesus. And so I have been very, very careful since then to make sure that I keep just this Jesus with my creche or nativity scene, so that I don't lose him again. In fact, right now I'm just going to place him in the manger as he's there with an adoring mom Mary and father Joseph as they look at him there. It's always a reminder, and I think of that story often when it comes to this time of the year, that we are encouraged to keep Jesus at the very center of our Christmas. So how do we respond to the invitation of Advent to get ready to prepare for Christmas? As you make this retreat journey with me, let me suggest 3 ways that you might do so. And whichever way is best for you, I would suggest you practice it. If the others are not suited to your liking or to your time, don't worry about it. Do what works for you. There are 24 chapters, this is number 1, in the Gospel of Luke. And if you read a chapter a day, which is not a difficult or onerous task, by the time Christmas Eve arrives, you will have read through the entire Gospel of Luke. And I think this is a great way to prepare to get ready for the coming of Christ at Christmas. You see the birth of Jesus, the healings of Jesus, the encounters of Jesus with persons who are poor, and you also see him crucified and risen. Luke is a beautiful gospel. And if you read one chapter each day, come Christmas Eve, beginning December 1 and reading through December 24, you'll be all set and ready to go. The second thing I would suggest to you is to take a walk in nature. Find a place that's quiet and reflective, and maybe take a few moments to look into your heart and ask, what is it that I truly want or need from Christ during Advent and Christmas? How is it that I can be ready for Jesus, to receive him well? What do I need to give up or to take into my heart? And you can do that in the silence and beauty of God's creation. The third thing is something that I do several times during Advent. I happen to have no musical ability or talent whatsoever, but what I do have is the ability to talk to Alexa and to ask her to play something. And so several times during the Advent season, I will listen to Handel's Messiah and be reminded of the beauty of Scripture and music and voices as they give praise to the glory of God. If you can, take some time to listen to Handel's Messiah and to the predictions and proclamations of the coming of Christ. If there is something, a practice or something that you know of and you want to do, then please do it. But take some time, pull some time out to prepare for the gift of Christ at Christmas during this Advent season. Many years ago, when I was still pastoring at Whaleyville New Hope, the Reverend Dr. Tom McKelvey was a guest speaker. He was my superintendent at the time, and I remember the sermon that he preached that Sunday morning almost word for word, though it's been many, many years ago. And it was about a question. How are your preparations going? And he talked about the buying and wrapping of gifts and the preparation of the Christmas tree and the ornaments and the decorations and all the things that we do to beautify ourselves and our food and our houses for Christmas, and how we hung lights in the yard and all those preparations that create such beauty and such goodwill and such harmony in the season of Christmas. But then he said, how are your preparations going for receiving the greatest gift of all, the gift of Jesus? So during this season of Advent, I want to ask you that question. Are you ready? Are you prepared for the coming of Christ at Christmas? May God bless you as we begin this Advent Christmas retreat journey together.